Children, Goblet of the Truth Index by Dr. Pleune.
Goblet of the Truth Index by Dr. Pleune, drpleune@gmail.com.
Children become victims when there is a marital breakdown resulting in asocial and forlorn actions. Chapter 28, lines 323.
Look at the customs of your bond bindings. When you espouse each other, be it between man and woman and woman, or man and man, because everything is directed only towards seeing the bond merely as a matter without any responsibility and obligation, which, ye Runzer, can be dissolved at any time according to your desire and mood. If the one partner has had enough of the other, if money or other problems arise, or if the two spouses grow apart, or if there is a marital breakdown, the fact that children are procreated or adopted in such bonds, who in the whole process are the main victims, and as a result often become human beings who are asocial or forlorn in themselves. That does not worry you amongst you human beings of earth, who belong to those unfair, irresponsible, conscienceless, and non-righteous ones, who go forth in this kind and wise in a bond of marriage.
Children can be spoiled by giving them your goods and riches rather than good guidance. Chapter 9, lines 69.
Truly, even if you are mighty in power or influence, amongst people of your kind or human beings, as unfair ones or irresponsible ones, and unrighteous ones or conscienceless ones, and if you have many goods and riches and children, you will enjoy your fate for only a brief time, because you constantly hunt after new goods and riches, and your children take ways that do not please you and bring you grief and worries, because you spoil them with your goods and your riches, and no longer let them be granted any good guidance or education, and as unfair ones or irresponsible ones, and unrighteous ones or conscienceless ones. You take delight in idle or feeble speeches, although your works yield nothing. Therefore you are lost ones in everything that you do.
Children craving for uncontrolled offspring results in wilder overpopulation and destroying the climate of the planet. Chapter 27, lines 60.
Such doing is an absolute waste of time for your short life period, through which you also endanger your future because you do not awaken the creational in you through the effective truth, but quite the contrary. You only create hatred and war as well as unfairness, jealousy and murder and manslaughter in yourselves and in the entire world, and get very badly out of the control of the good human nature into torture, terror, crime, pathological craving for revenge and pathological craving for retaliation, through which unaccountability, unfairness, rightlessness, consciencelessness, and irresponsibility constantly gain the upper hand in you, as well as your pathological craving for uncontrolled offspring, which gets very badly out of the control of the good human nature into ever wilder overpopulation, thereby destroying the climate of the planet, and through which enormous quantities of life of all kinds are killed and also eradicated.
Children defiling them at their sexual organ. Chapter 4, lines 22.
And if a man or a woman amongst you commits chastisement or violation, by defiling or misusing, violating, children or a woman or a man at their sexual organ, then call for witnesses and request the jurisdiction to subject the fallible ones to fulfillment of guidelines as punishment, and separate women from men or men from women, or exclude from society and from the other sex, for an appropriate time.
Children discipline. Chapter 8, lines 16.
Never punish people of your kind or fellow human beings, whether children or those who have come of age or grown up. Instead, practice only punishment in equitableness or fairness, if it is necessary, although the body and life as well as the inner world or consciousness and the psyche shall not be harmed.
Children following after greed, as you do, should not be a surprise to you. Chapter 9, lines 57.
Do not be amazed about the stinginess of many who have great riches, because they always demand more and greater riches, and at the same time they cannot rein in or moderate, Their demand because they do not know any bounds or limits in their greed for more and more riches. Therefore, do not be amazed about your children if they do the same as you, if you have yourselves fallen prey to stinginess, greed, and riches.
Children heinous to defile sexually misuse. Children chapter 6 lines 153.
Truly, since long before you or time immemorial, you have been led astray by the false teachings of false prophets and by priests, and all kinds of servants or handshi or helpers, who pray to gods and tin gods and bring down calamities upon you. Therefore, many of the priests, of the servants of gods, and servants of tin gods, have made the killing of your children, and also of people of your kind or adults, appear as pleasing to you, so that you become depraved, and your belief in the gods and tin gods confuses you, and they do it so that you may be debased or made dependent, and subjugated or placed in bondage, by the false prophets and priests as well as by the leaders of the godlinesses or religions, and sub-godlinesses or sects, cults, and exploited by them, and they rob you of your goods and chattels as well as of your riches, at the same time as also outraging or committing torture and murder on your blood, body and life, and fulfilling or gratifying their ausgartet libidinous lustfulness, or sexual Ausartung, on you and on your children in secret. And they lie that all these terrible things are pleasing to their gods and tin gods, so that they can coerce everything from you and from your children that they want. And if their nefarious activity or villainy is openly or publicly cried out or known amongst you, then they deny it or fabulate or allege that you and your children wanted it. Truly, it is particularly heinous or villainous to defile or sexually misuse children through libidinous lustfulness. Therefore everyone, man and woman, shall be brought to account for this through severe punishment.
Children mankind is worsened through irresponsibility in creating children, through the lust for sex chapter 23 lines 103.
Truly, you must clearly recognize, and indeed through intellect and rationality, that you are yourselves responsible for all the terrible things surrounding you, and for the entire chaos in you and in your world, for all the affliction and for all the misery in yourselves as well as in the entire world. And you yourselves contribute to making everything even worse because you do not restrict your offspring, but rather continue to reproduce irresponsibly, through which all terrible things, the misery and the affliction as well as the gigantic catastrophes also continue to multiply in the world and in its nature. As do also the hatred, the jealousy, the wars, the terror, the acts of Goblet and crimes, etc. amongst you.
Children maximum number by one or several bonds is 3 chapter 2 lines 270.
And if you beget offspring, then first consider whether you have the capability and possibility to bring up and feed children truly rightfully. And so it shall be that no illnesses are present for the offspring which they could inherit. Therefore it shall not be permitted for deracinated or asocial ones and enemies of people or enemies of society to have offspring. Nor shall it be permitted to those who use Goblet, and those who threaten the life and safety of the people or terrorists, etc. Also those who are incapable of bringing up and nourishing children, as well as those who are confused and sick, in their inner world or consciousness, and in their psyche, as well as those with inherited illnesses and those addicted to fermented juices and medicines and intoxicants or drugs or narcotics, shall not be allowed to beget offspring. Offspring shall only be permitted in the number of 3 per woman and in one marital bond. Therefore the number of 3 offspring per woman also applies if a former bond has been dissolved and the letter of separation given, and if then a new bond is entered into. If a woman already has 1 child from a previous marital bond, then the number of 2 offspring shall not be exceeded in a further bond, so that the number of 3 children applies per woman.
Children, no killing of children nor mankind except in self-defense chapter 6 lines 156.
Truly, it is heinous or villainous to kill children, whether out of unknowledgeness, out of jealousy or revenge, out of hatred or rage, in strife or on any grounds whatsoever, because the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities or creation do not allow the killing of children, and neither the killing of those who have grown out of youth or grown up, except if it is in defense in extremis or self-defense, and no other possibility of defense or self-defense is given. Therefore you shall not overstep the bounds or limits of defense in extremis or self-defense, and you shall not bring it about intentionally or consciously, so that you will not be called to account or punished.
Children number of offspring should be managed to stop overpopulation. Chapter 4 lines 5.
And as you create descendants, it shall be done in the measure of insight or rationality, so that the standard measure of the number of all peoples or humankind does not get out of control in a very bad wise, and result in immoderateness or overpopulation, and the world and its weathers. The appearance or nature and all life on earth do not suffer great and lasting damage or destruction of the environment, destruction of the climate, extinction of forms of life / wars / crimes, etc. Therefore, the recommendation of insight or rationality and of control over extent is given for obedience or following, so that no calamity may come over you and your world. Consequently, it is recommended that you keep yourselves within bounds or limits, and manage or monitor the standard measure of the number of all peoples, and that you undertake or carry out a measurement or census every certain number of years, so that the measure of all inhabitants of earth does not become too great, and remains within the number of the maintainable or supportable, without leading to harm, or 529 million.
Children raise them in the truth. Chapter 3 lines 49.
And pay heed that, if you desire children, you do not make them into believers in gods and tin gods, and that priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods do not lead them astray into submissiveness, because your offspring shall be free in their thoughts and feelings, as well as in their determinations or decisions, and their deeds in all things. And pay heed that belief and submissiveness fight against and suppress or prevent your own determinations or decisions, and own deeds in your own responsibility, resulting in a subjection or subordination / dependency / subjugation / servitude.
Children respect for and teaching them. Chapter 3 lines 45 to 48.
And as you are born from the womb of your mothers, so your children will also be born from the womb of their mothers. And it shall be that you treat them honorably, whether they are female or male, because each created sex is worthy of the life in honor, in equitableness or fairness, and in dignity. Therefore no distinction is to be made by you between children of female or male gender. And be certain or knowing that no child shall be preferred before another, and appointed or esteemed valued more than another one, and therefore a female child is of no greater worth than a male child, and a male child is of no greater worth than a female one. Instead, it shall be that offspring of either sex are included into the same rights and the same freedom, as well as the same honor and dignity. And consider that when children come forth from the womb of a mother, that you are responsible for their thriving and their provision, and that they are instructed or taught rightfully in all things of the preparation or education, and in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. And you shall also be responsible for instructing your offspring in the influences or factors effects of dying and of death, as it is explained in. And if a woman is pregnant, then she shall carry the growing life in honor and dignity, so that its forming will be completed in its time and born. And if it is given that the fruit of the womb endangers the life of the pregnant woman, or if it is given that the fruit of the womb is demonstrably terribly deformed or incapable of life, then it shall be that the unborn life is interrupted in its development and aborted, and women shall not be reproached for this, because this doing is rightful, providing the reason or precondition is given for it. Do not heed the delusional teachings of false wise people and false prophets, neither those of priests or other servants of gods and servants of tin gods and truth distorters, who instruct or teach other things and spread teachings that are lies. Always be kind and patient with your offspring and instruct or teach them the real truth in all things, because they are the ones who will steer the situation of the world after you. Therefore tell them what they shall do rightfully, and in equitableness or fairness, as you instruct or teach them. Allow your offspring to grow up in well-disposed growth, the female and the male, and be good caretakers or guardians, and benefactors to them in all things, so that they may become true people of your kind or human beings, in all respects or regards.
Children's sex with not allowed. Chapter 5 lines 16.
It is not allowed for you to have congress or sexual intercourse with male or female children before they have come of age or reached adulthood. Also, it is not allowed for you to have congress or sexual intercourse with untouched ones or virgin ones, whether male or female, unless you have made a mutual agreement of marriage in the presence of bystanders or witnesses, through which lying with one another or having sexual intercourse is also permitted before the bond or marriage is entered into or concluded.
Children teach, instruct your children, grandchildren, etc. in the laws and recommendations. Chapter 6 lines 92.
The laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all vitalities or creation are given to you so that you may recognize and follow them and be led rightly in your existence, so that you may be creators of good things and also instruct or teach your descendants, so that also your offspring or children's children, etc., may be fair ones or responsible ones and righteous ones or conscientious ones, supporters of the truth, of equitableness or fairness, and of virtues.
Children teach the truth to them. Chapter 7 lines 107.
And if you belong to the undisguised ones or truthful ones / truth-loving ones, and you are able to interpret and to understand the signs or evidence of the prophets and of the appearance or nature of the wellspring of the love or creation, then show or teach them to your next ones and to all those people of your kind or fellow human beings who want to gain knowledge of them and to be connected to the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life.
Children teach them from birth to adulthood so they may teach their descendants. Chapter 3 lines 59.
And teach your children the truth teaching whilst they are still in the cradle, and continue to teach them until they come of age or grow up, so that they may also teach their descendants if they beget them and bring them into the world. Act so that you and your descendants are righteous ones or conscientious ones, and are knowing ones in the truth and fair ones or responsible ones.
Children teach them so they are firmly grounded in the teaching of truth, spirit and life. Chapter 4 lines 209.
You shall teach your children so that they are firmly grounded or taught in the knowledge of all things of the existence or life, and in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. Therefore also in the things of the life, dying and death, so that they do not worry about life, and do not have one iota of uncertainty, and so that the greatest reward of the life may be granted to them.
Children teach them the truth. Chapter 7 lines 173.
And consider that if you bring forth or create descendants from your loins, that you shall teach or instruct them the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, so that you do not make them into witnesses against their own selves and against the truth, so that they become knowing of the true existence or reality, and are not unknowing of the truth at the end of their days.
Children teach them the truth when young, but their choice to follow when grown. Chapter 4 lines 207 to 209.
And instruct or teach your descendants amongst yourselves in the teaching of the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all love or creation, the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, once they have grown out of feeding at the mother's breast or suckling, so that, even from an early age, they may be knowing or conscious in dealing with the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all love or creation, and with the laws of the appearance or nature. But the instruction shall be an instruction only, not however a coercion, so that the descendants may decide for themselves at a later age whether they wish to follow the truth teaching or not. And it is rightful that children shall be taught or instructed in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life at special places of learning or schools, based on free determination or decision. However, all instructing ones and preparing ones or educating ones shall be concerned with instructing or teaching the children in the truth teaching, so that they may find the true way to the existence or life, and may tread and fulfill or accomplish it in equitableness or fairness, and righteousness or conscientiousness, as well as in the truth knowledge and in all virtues. You shall teach your children so that they are firmly grounded or taught in the knowledge of all things of the existence or life, and in the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. Therefore also in the things of the life, dying and death, so that they do not worry about life and do not have one iota of uncertainty, and so that the greatest reward of the life may be granted to them.
Children treatment of Chapter 8 lines 29.
And know that your goods and possessions and all your riches shall not be a temptation for you to be avaricious. And be thoughtful or reminded that your children are a richness of your clan or family, but are not to be put to work like those amongst you who have come of age or grown-ups. And be thoughtful or reminded that you shall not sell your children or offer them for sale or defile or misuse them for your revelry or sexuality. Your children are the reward of your love and togetherness. Therefore you shall also keep or care for and educate them in love and guard or protect them in deference or honorableness. And consider that your children are the time to come or future for all people of your kind or humankind, because they are the ones who continue your heritage. Love your children as you love yourselves, and teach them the truth of the laws and recommendations of the creation of all things or creation, so that they may be rightfully led or educated, and bear this heritage in the time to come or future.
Children treatment of unfairness Chapter 2 lines 237.
And as you shall practice equitableness, or being fairness in all things, so also practice equitableness, or being fair, to your children, because they are no less or inferior than you. Therefore you shall treat them as people of your kind or human beings, just as you treat those who are no longer young or are grown-ups, and are not children anymore.
Children young and old need to be responsible for teaching truthfully life conduct to children. Chapter 28 lines 326 to 327.
And you young and elderly human beings who do not allow disgust to arise in your thoughts, feelings as well as in your dignity and in your feeling of honor when you are confronted with such celebrations, customs and traditions, and therefore, out of your own responsibility, conscientiousness and righteousness as well as virtuousness, opt not to stay away from such doing. Activity, organizing and contributing, you put yourselves on the same level with those for whom the act of entering into the bond is only a matchmaking orgy. And as a result, you can no longer be taken into consideration when it comes to evaluating what is right and righteous. You who are in this wise, fallible, and hostile of the truthfully life conduct in accordance with the creational laws and recommendations, everything has developed in you in such a wise that you live as if in a poisoned, delirious state through which you cheat yourselves about the fact what life and death really are. And the reason for this is that you do not want to be confronted with it through your thoughts and feelings, whereas the creeps and shyness play just as an important role as cowardice, and the fact that already as a children you had, because of the irresponsibility of your parents, not been instructed and taught with the thematic of the dying, the death as well as the procreation, the birth and the life, just as this irresponsible omission of the clarification already goes back to their parents and grandparents and the ancestors, to far into the past.